So on today's agenda, we're going to be talking about the portfolio tool primarily. And so we'll start out talking about what is the portfolio tool and some reasons why and how you might use it. And then we'll talk about using the portfolio in kind of the two main ways you can use it. So either through the web experience, which basically just means logging onto the iLearn platform like you would any other day and navigating to the portfolio tool there, or using the app. So we do have a mobile app that is built for students to facilitate the collection of evidence. It's not required. You don't need to use the app to use Portfolio, or I should say students don't need to use the app to use Portfolio, but it's a great option, especially for if you're a teacher of younger grades, pre-K, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. The app is really great for little ones who maybe have trouble remembering usernames and passwords. The app has some functionality built in where they can scan a QR code that they can access from the web experience and make it really easy for them to add artifacts, picture and video artifacts to their portfolio from there. The app is also great for older students, grade 7, grade 8. If they do happen to have their own mobile device, they can use the My Device mode within the app and be documenting evidence of learning using the app as well. But again, neither of those are required to use the Portfolio web experience. So we'll start out talking all about using Portfolio just within the iLearn platform, and then I'll give you a live demo of the app as well, so that you can get a sense of how that works. And then finally, there's also, we're going to save a bit of time at the end to talk about just another tool called Class Progress. And this is a great tool for monitoring, kind of get an idea of how students are doing in your class and how they're interacting with your course. So we'll spend some time kind of going through that. All right, so let's get started. What is Portfolio? And so I always try to summarize Portfolio in kind of one sentence, or summarize every tool that I talk about in one sentence. And so my one sentence for Portfolio is it's a tool that empowers students to independently capture evidence of learning. So some key words there are the fact that it empowers students to capture their evidence of learning. So Portfolio is a very student-centered tool in comparison or in contrast to the assignments tool, which is very teacher-driven, right? As a teacher, you need to create an assignment and then students submit to that assignment folder. A Portfolio doesn't work like that. You can't assign a Portfolio task. It's just kind of like an open bucket that students can put per course, that students can put artifacts into. Now, as a teacher, you do have some control though over what goes in their portfolio. You can do things like delete things from their portfolio. You can actually add things to their portfolio on their behalf. You can categorize and tag evidence that's in their portfolio. But the whole philosophy or fundamental structure of Portfolio is that it is student-centered. The idea of it is that students have ownership over their portfolio for the most part. Also, another key word is that it empowers students to independently capture evidence of learning. So it is built for, if you are using the app, so that you can see this little image here, that's our version of the app for our youngest learners. That was built so that 4- and 5-year-olds can independently use that app without any adult help. They can do it all on their own. And that was, again, specifically built for busy teachers who in your classroom, you want students to be able to capture their evidence of learning on their own without having to help them, or with today's context with people learning from home, you want students to be able to independently do it at home as well without necessarily having to go ask their parents for help. So that's really one of the important parts of the Portfolio app, is that it's designed, there's particular modes in it that are designed for our youngest learners to be able to add to their portfolio. So portfolio really is a tool that's heavily based around pictures and images, documenting the process of learning, very much all about experiential learning, and that's why it is so picture and video focused. Of course, you can add other types of documents to portfolio, like a Word document, a PowerPoint, a Google Drive file. Those can all be added, but in practice, we often see photos being added to portfolio because portfolio, again, is about documenting that growth and that mastery of skills, and usually that's demonstrated through a picture or a video of some kind. So for example, the little ones, if we're thinking about their experiential learning, perhaps you're a kindergarten or a grade 1 teacher and you're asking the students, maybe using the activity feed tool, you ask the students to go outside and find something that's in the shape of a circle or something like that. They could then take their iPad or take a device that they have at home and snap a picture of something that they find outside that's a circle. And the app actually prompts the student for a reflection as well. So another really big part of a portfolio is that reflection piece that you don't get within the assignments tool. It's all about students gaining that metacognition, being active learners. And so that reflection, a student would then be able to, if they're using the youngest mode, record an audio reflection where they're talking about what they found that's in the shape of a circle. Or for older learners, maybe you've asked them to, maybe you're teaching visual arts and you're asking them to document the stages of going through an art project and reflecting on that, each stage of that project, maybe identifying what their next steps are, what they struggled with. Those are all things that they could do within the portfolio tool before they get to that final piece that they're ready to submit, maybe to the assignments tool for actual formal evaluation. Another great example is using portfolio for any other kind of physical demonstration of skills. So maybe it's a drama monologue, maybe it's demonstrating safe movements for a physical education course, maybe it's a second language course and you're demonstrating how to speak the language, you're giving some sort of oral presentation in that language, or even for English oral communication, documenting a video of you orally communicating. And as a teacher, you can give feedback on that. Again, that would go into their portfolio. So a ton of different uses for it. The portfolio tool is very flexible. It's totally up to you how you have students adding to their portfolio. You can make it entirely student run where they're deciding what they're adding to their portfolio and at what point, or it can be a little bit more prescriptive where you're using the portfolio to say, hey, we're on step 1 of our essay writing. Upload your thesis statement to document to the portfolio, and then you can give them feedback on it and continue through that essay writing process until they get to that final essay submission, which maybe you're doing in the assignments tool. So again, documenting that growth in portfolio and then doing that final evaluation in the assignments tool. Or maybe you're doing it more that students are being active in choosing which assignments they've done or which work they've done constitutes their best work. And so, for example, if there was an assignment that they were particularly proud of, they could upload that same assignment file to portfolio. Yeah, so that lots of different ways to use the tool. It really depends on you and what you see is what's going to be valuable for you and how you use it. Also, obviously, it's going to depend on the age that you teach. So kindergartners might use it for kind of in a very different way than a grade 8 student might use it. And so I'll continue just to try to give examples of all different ranges. And so some great reasons to use the portfolio tool is it's, as I mentioned already, it's entirely student-centered. While the teacher does have some control over what goes into their portfolio and can choose to require approval for artifacts to go into students' portfolios. It is really just very student-centered at its core. One great advantage of the portfolio is that it travels with the student year over year. And so unlike some of the other tools that stay with the course, like the assignments tool, assignments that they do, that it stays with the course, or discussions that they participate in, that stays with the course, versus portfolio, actually at the end of the year, if they spend the year documenting and putting items, artifacts into their portfolio, at the end of the year, the portfolio will automatically get packaged up into a little tile that will go under the previous portfolio section, and then students will have that as they progress all throughout their learning journey. So theoretically, if you had a student in kindergarten who was using portfolio, they would be able to come all the way through their learning journey, all the way to grade 12. And if they used it every year, they would see their portfolio artifacts from every year prior, which is pretty neat. The other advantage of that is that teachers have access to students' previous portfolios as well. So if I'm a grade 4 teacher and I've got students coming to me in grade 3, I can take a look into their portfolio and look back at their previous portfolios from grade 3 and get a little sense of where they were at last year, what they focused on, and do a bit of a diagnostic to give me a bit of a starting place with students in my year. So it's great for that as well. Pedagogical documentation for all ages. So I mentioned that the portfolio app itself has a couple different modes, some of which are great for students who have their own device or who are a little bit older or more independent. And then there's other modes within the app that are meant for our youngest learners. Or, like I said, you don't have to use the app at all. We're going to start out talking primarily about the web experience. So just the experience when you log into iLearn and navigate to portfolio within your course. You can use portfolio exclusively through there, but the app is a great option for students to use to easily capture their evidence and add it to their portfolio, especially when we're talking about pictures and videos and adding those. That's really what the app is designed to do, is to quickly take pictures, quickly take videos, and add them to the portfolio. It's great for metacognition. So like I said, a big component of portfolio is that reflection piece. And so with every time they upload an artifact to their portfolio, there's an option to add a reflection to that artifact. And that's really up to you as the teacher to decide how much you want to scaffold that, or how prescriptive you want to be in terms of what should be included in that reflection. Some teachers will leave it completely open, say in kindergarten, where they don't want to be prescriptive and they just want to kind of let students have that sort of play-based learning, experiential learning format where they're really just observing, talking about what they see, what the artifact is, and it's completely open. Versus other teachers, they might opt to provide sentence prompts or a bit of a structure of what is a good reflection, having the students identify what their next steps are in their learning, or what they struggled with, or what they found interesting. Whatever you as a teacher think is appropriate for them to be reflecting on, you can decide to prescribe that to students and have students include that in their reflection. So it's great for, again, process documentation, working through a unit, working towards mastery towards something, and then that makes it easy to pull up for parent-teacher conferences or even report cards. Really just seeing that growth of the student becomes very easy in portfolio. So those are some great reasons to use it, and I hope I've got you hooked at this point, or at least wanting to learn a little bit more about it and see how it works a little bit more. So let's take a look. So I'm in the iLearnNYC platform right now, as you can see, and I'm in a sample course. And now I'm in as a teacher, okay? So this is we're gonna talk entirely about the teacher view first, and then we'll go into the student view and then eventually the app. So for me as a teacher, I get to portfolio by clicking on portfolio up at the top here, this little leaf. And when I do that, I have a list of all of the students in my class. So in order to play around with portfolio, you need to have some students in your class. Your sandbox courses, if you are someone who likes to click along with me through these training sessions, you might have to kind of put a pause on that for this session, because if you don't have students in your class, then you won't see all of these cards here. So let's take a look. So in my class, I've got lots of demo students, as you can see. And anytime the student has an artifact in their portfolio, the latest artifact shows up as a card or as the background behind the student's profile picture and name, sorry. And so you can see demo student 26 here has one piece of evidence collected. And so then you see those little indicators here on all of these cards. I've got a student that's got a couple more, like student 28, it's got 6 pieces of evidence. So let's go into theirs. And so you can see the varying types of artifacts. So there's some that are pictures of work that they did, you know, a science experiment. If you're teaching science and you're talking about procedures or the safe setup of a lab or something like that, they could be taking a picture of their setup. Lots of different applications. Or you can see there's a couple Word documents that the student has uploaded. Those render nicely right in the portfolio tool. Or they can pull from their Google Drive as well. And you can see down here, this is a Google Drive file. So when we go in and look at the artifact, so remember this is the teacher view, we're looking at student 28's portfolio, and we're going to go into this school experiment artifact. And so as a teacher, when I see this artifact sitting here, I can click on it and I get this enlarged view of the artifact. Down below that, I can see if the student has made any reflection on it. And so they have the option of doing a written reflection, or if they're using the app, they can do an audio reflection. And so we'll see a little bit later another artifact that has an audio reflection on it. But in this example, we've got a written reflection right here. And so I can read what the student's reflection is and actually kind of respond to it by putting some information or some feedback in this teacher feedback area. And so you see I've already written great work here. Maybe next time, try whatever your feedback is. And so the student will see that when they look at this artifact. That's not the only type of feedback I can offer. I can also attach a rubric to the artifact. So if I click on Add Rubric, this will actually bring up all of the rubrics that I have in my class. I only have 2. I have the physics problem solving rubric and use of standard English rubric. But if you've created more than that, then you'll see more. So that works with our rubrics tool that you might have been introduced to yesterday when we talked about the assignments tool. But if not, it's a great tool to explore. I love our rubrics tool. Teachers love our rubrics tool. And it can be applied not only in portfolio, but in the assignments tool and in the discussions tool, and has a lot of great features. So here I can attach, in this case, I attached a physics problem solving rubric. And now from here, I can go ahead and give some feedback on this artifact using the rubric. And I can add some additional feedback, type some things out, whatever I see appropriate. It's important to point out though, as I described at the beginning, portfolio is really meant to be a formative kind of assessment. So this rubric can't be connected to the grade book or can't be connected to the assignments tool. Portfolio is a very separate tool, again, designed to show growth and help students work towards mastery of particular skills. And so this rubric is for formative feedback purposes and cannot be connected to the grade book. It's meant to give them an evaluation that helps them understand what their next steps are, where they're at, and hopefully then submit another artifact, you know, in a week or whatever, with maybe the same rubric attached that you've now assessed again, and hopefully they've progressed. Down below here, so we talked about the reflection that the student can leave. I didn't mention though that the teacher can actually add a reflection on behalf of the student as well. So if we're thinking about our youngest learners, if let's say we have an example of a kindergarten student who is using the Funster app, so the portfolio app in the Funster mode, and they've recorded an audio reflection, but their audio reflection actually has nothing to do with the artifact that they took a picture of. So they took a picture of something circular they found outside, and then they started talking about their pet cat in their reflection. As a teacher, I want to hear that child's thoughts on that circle though. As lovely as I'm sure the story about the cat was, I still want to hear this child's thinking about the circle that they found. And so I might have a one-on-one conference, either virtually, or if I'm in a physical classroom space, I might call the student over and bring up this picture of the circle, going back to that example, and ask them to tell me a little bit about it. And so then in this area, I can sort of scribe for the student or write some of their thoughts here in this directly, so that I've captured those and now they're relevant and I've captured some of the students' thinking. So that's handy, most handy for the youngest learners. Down below that, you have the ability to categorize some of their, categorize the artifact. And so if I click on Add Category, if you look under the Class Categories section, this is a section where you can add your own categories to be able to very quickly filter and sort artifacts. If, for example, you know, and it's totally up to you how you organize things. So you can create tags for Unit 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're teaching multiple subjects, maybe you want to have tags per subject, art, math, music, or again, summative versus formative work. It's totally up to you. However you want to be able to tag these artifacts so that later you can filter by those tags, and it makes it really easy when you're writing report cards, or if you just want to see, okay, show me all of their work on Unit 2, you can easily filter that and see all of those. So this allows you to add the tags. So you see as I click on each one of these, the tags show up here. I can remove them. Now, if I want to add a new tag that I haven't created yet, I can go to the category manager, which we're going to take a trip over there when we go into the settings area. This is a nice little shortcut while we're here. We could click on that and create some tags here, but I'm going to go there from the settings area when we come out of this artifact, because there's a couple other areas in the settings area that I do want to show you. All right. So underneath the rubric, the last thing that I didn't yet talk about was this teacher only area. I'm going to click on that, and that'll collapse everything above it and expand this teacher only area. And this is an area if you want to put some private notes in on this artifact. And so these private notes mean private in that they're not visible by students. If your district had activated Brightspace for Parents, which they are looking to do in the future, these private notes would not be visible to parents. It would only be visible to yourself and any other teacher-like roles in the classroom. So if you have a paraprofessional or a teaching colleague or somebody else who's in this classroom space as a teacher-like role, they would have access to these private teacher notes. And so maybe it's a note to say, you know, I need to go back and reteach this with this student, or remember to note on the report card X, Y, Z. So a little note for myself. And then you see here it's visible. That means visible to your colleagues. So other teacher-like roles in the classroom. If I really just want it to be visible just for me, I can switch it over to hidden, and now it's only ever visible to me. Not visible to students, not visible to teachers, not visible to when the student graduates to the next school year, it won't be visible to that next year's teacher either. So that means private, private if it's hidden. If it's in the private teacher's notes and it's hidden, no one else is ever going to see it. But if it's visible, other teachers will see it. All right. So that is essentially everything we can do on a particular artifact. And so I'm going to go back. While we're here, I'll point out these filters. And so those filters by those class categories that we used, there they are here, and I can select which tags I want to filter by. I don't remember which filters I put on here now. If I can see any of them, I'd be able to view those items that fit those categories. And take them off. And now I can see everything. Down below at the bottom, there's previous portfolios. So as I mentioned at the beginning, their previous portfolios get wrapped up into a little package, and it turns into a little tile here at the bottom where they can select the picture or select the tile and see previous portfolios. So the teacher would be able to do that, and the student as well. All right, let's go back out of here and back to that view where we had a list of all the students in the classroom. And so next I want to talk about that settings area that I mentioned. And so if I click on settings, you can see down at the bottom, we've got that category management area that we saw. We saw the shortcut to this area with when we were looking at the categories, but now here in settings, this is where you can go and add categories as you'd like. So I could click on new category and add a new category, and it gets displayed there. And now that will be an option to choose when I'm categorizing portfolio artifacts individually. Above that, we've got evidence approval. So as I mentioned, teachers do have some control over what goes into students' portfolios. They can add to students' portfolios on their behalf, but they can also decide if students are adding to their portfolio, does the teacher want to approve those artifacts before they go into the student's portfolio? And if the answer is yes, then they'll want to come in here and make sure the correct modes are checked off for requiring approval. So what you're deciding here is, depending on the way that a student adds portfolio artifacts to their portfolio, do you want to have to approve it or not? So the portfolio web tool, that is referring to, if I come out of here, when I click on student 14 demo, this is the same view that the student has. Actually, let's go into somebody who has some artifacts just so it's nice and clear. Right here. So if I'm the student, this is actually my view. When I come into the web experience, I have this view. This is what my portfolio looks like. And as a student, I have this option, add to portfolio. So like I said, they don't have to use the app to add to their portfolio. They can add to their portfolio directly from here. The only thing is they can't snap a picture because we're on a computer. So there's no camera device to access and take a picture with. So they would have to take a picture with another device, or using their webcam or something like that, save the file, and then they would be able to add it here, or they could pull from their Google Drive or their OneDrive. Okay, so going back to that approval, if they add evidence this way, if they add evidence by dragging and dropping files in or pulling from their Google Drive or OneDrive, do you want those files to be automatically added to their portfolio, or do you want to require approval for it? And so if you do want to require approval, check that off, and now it will go into your, as the teacher, your list of artifacts that are waiting for approval to go into the portfolio. The other option is the portfolio app in the class device and the family device modes. Those are two modes that are primarily built for younger learners, and so by default that one has it checked off that it requires approval. just because we are talking about with the app, it is designed to be taking pictures and videos. And so for the younger learners, we especially want to make sure that they've taken a picture of something that they intended to take a picture of before it goes into their portfolio. And so you can, again, require that evidence by the default is checking it off. So you can just leave it like that if you like that. And then the last option is Portfolio app in the My Device mode. So the My Device mode is for those older students who have their own cell phone or their own device, and they can log into Portfolio from that app and capture their evidence using the app. That one by default is not checked off as requiring approval because it's usually older students who use that mode, and usually teachers opt to give students the autonomy to decide what they're putting in their portfolio and don't require approval. But if you want to, you're certainly welcome to, and you can check that off and make it so that you have to approve every artifact that goes in through this mode. All right, so that is the settings area. So I'll talk now about that approve evidence area. So if you do opt to say, I want to approve things before they go in, then as a teacher, you'll want to come over to this approve evidence option, where you'll see a list of all the artifacts sitting there waiting to be approved. Some of the previous sessions I did this morning, I was taking pictures of a mug. I'll do the same thing with you guys, but we've got some other options here, or other artifacts here waiting for approval. And you can see this one is a picture. It's got a title here. This one is an example, as I promised you, of an artifact that has an audio reflection. So if I click into that one, you can see, I see the audio reflection. I can hit play and I would hear the student speaking about their artifact, and could do all those things that I talked about earlier, adding feedback, adding rubrics, all that kind of thing. And so from here, I can hit approve to portfolio if I'm ready for these to go into the student's portfolio. This option as well, this is a video, so you can see that they've used the in-class or the at-home mode to make a video of that they've added into their portfolio. And so again, as a teacher, I'd be able to click on that video and watch it. And then provide some feedback on it, approve it, let it go into the portfolio, all those things. And so I'll go back to class portfolios. Now we're back to where we started. And now I'm just realizing I didn't talk about the last setting in the settings area, and that's deciding what view you see here for their pictures. And so if we actually compare it to this one, I'm in another environment here with using the student's profile cards. So these pictures, each student has gone in and uploaded their profile picture to their profile, and so in settings, you can choose to display their profile photo if they've uploaded one, or their little monster, friendly monster avatar. And so you can see here under settings, that's that first one here, use friendly funster avatars instead of profile photos. I can hit uncheck that and hit save. And then usually takes a minute or two, but these will flip to being the student's profile pictures if they've uploaded it. If they haven't uploaded a profile picture, it'll just be a little avatar or a little outline of a shadow of a person without any photo there. All right, so I'd like to move into a demonstration of the app now, but before I do that, you might have heard me mention that with the app, there's a couple of different modes. And so I'm going to pull up this slide to help me explain that. So when you go into the app, and a reminder that the app is for students and for students to use for the collection of evidence. So it's not for students to manage their evidence. So it's not for them to view teacher feedback or view the rubric feedback, that sort of thing. All of the management and viewing of teacher feedback would still be done in the web experience. The portfolio app is really just for the capture of the evidence of learning. So taking a picture or recording a video, that's really what it's built to do. So when you open the portfolio app, it's called Brightspace Portfolio. It's got a little image of the leaf. There's three options. There's the class device, which is meant for a shared device in a classroom, or there's the My Device mode, which is meant for students who are a little bit more independent, who probably have their own device and they want to log in with a username and password. They can do that with My Device. They always stay logged in, and then they can be capturing evidence of learning on the go, kind of from with their mobile device. An example of that, which I know isn't extremely applicable right now, but I'm going to share it anyway, is, for example, I've seen, grade 7 and 8 students who go on a field trip to, say, a museum or something like that, and they would have portfolio on their mobile devices and would be signed in the My Device. And so teachers could do things like, capture, take a picture of, something interesting that you saw at the museum, or whatever they're working towards in the classroom. And, the whole reason why they're going on this field trip, you can be having students capture their experience using the portfolio app, in this example, at a museum. And then the last example is family device, or last mode is the family device mode. That was released actually in March or April, really at the height of COVID, when most of the world was learning from home. And so this device, or this mode, was built for families of younger children who are likely to have maybe more than one child who are sharing a device. So there's not a device for every child in the class, in the household. This makes it really easy to switch between users who are using the app. So I'll call out that the family device and the class device, both are kind of meant for younger learners, or I should say, not necessarily younger, but students who don't have their own device. So if you're using class device or family device, they use or make the use of QR codes for students to authenticate themselves. So those QR codes, the one thing I didn't talk about is this print class pass card area. And so again, I'm in the teacher view. If I click on print class pass cards, this will bring up, the first card will be my class pass card, and then there'll be a QR code for every student in the class. And you see these avatars have switched to those outlines rather than those little monsters. But so now there's a QR code for each individual student. And so if I'm using this as in my physical classroom, a lot of teachers will print off these class cards. If you're a kindergarten or grade 1 teacher and you're kind of up on the move a lot, some teachers have even scaled these down to about 25% of their size and put them on a ring, so that students can, wherever they are, if they go to the gym or they go somewhere else in the school, students can be scanning, students can go to their teacher and ask to scan their pass card. Other teachers have put them into pocket charts. Other teachers have put them into binders. Other teachers have put each QR code on the desk of each student. It's really up to you if you end up being in a physical classroom space this school year. There is also the option, though, as I said, for family device. So if students are learning from home and you want them to be able to capture or use the app at home, you don't want to have to send each one of these individual QR codes to the students. So don't worry, you don't have to. When students come in to their portfolio, they actually have that same button, and that will generate a QR code for them individually. And so I want to actually pull over this window here and point out a few things from the student view. So this is, now I'm logged in as a student. Actually, maybe I'll go back so you can see how I got here. When a student logs in to iLearnNYC, they have either a quick access to portfolio. So if I click on, you can see I'm logged in as student 28 demo. They have the My Portfolio option right there, and that'll take them directly to a list of all the courses they're enrolled in, and then they could select the course, your course. Or when they're inside of a course, you'll notice that their option on the navigation bar is different than yours. So where yours was the little leaf that said portfolio, they have the little Funster avatar and it says my portfolio. And so that one's always nice for the little ones who recognize the picture of Funster, who's also in the app, pardon me. And so just comparing that to the teacher view, remember this is the teacher view. I see portfolio with the leaf, and the student view, they see portfolio with the little Funster app, or Funster picture. So when the student goes to their portfolio, so now I'm inside, let me get there actually. I'm just gonna pull this across and I'm gonna go into the sample course from the view of the student. I'm just gonna do this off screen, 1 second. There it is. All right, pull this over. And so now you can see this student is inside of my course, and these are the artifacts that we saw in his portfolio. And so now the student, if they want to use portfolio with the app at home, you see when they're inside their portfolio, they have an option, print class pass card. And when they click on that, they don't get the whole list of everybody in the class, they just get a QR code for themselves. And then from here, they'd be able to print that off. If they're really young, they might want a parent to help them with that, to get them set up, have them set up with the QR code, and then away they go with the app on their own. Or if they don't have a printer, they don't have to print them out. They can also save them directly to their computer or download them using this download button here. And then it will work. Actually, when I do the demo, you'll see I'll be scanning from the computer screen directly, and that works just fine. There's no need to print them off if you don't have a printer. So that's the student view, and actually the last thing I wanted to show you about the student view is that when a student comes to their portfolio, oops, let me go back into mine, back into that sample course. They have this option, add to portfolio as well. So I showed this in the teacher view. They can click on add to portfolio. Students can do that same thing, right? They can click on add to portfolio, and that's how they would add to their portfolio, not using the app. All right, so let's take a look at this app. So I'm going to pull up some pass cards here, and I'm going to switch my share to be sharing my iPad. So just give me a second. It usually takes a moment for me to switch my share. Here we go. And so you can see that on my iPad down at the bottom left here, I've got the portfolio app on my iPad. And so I can open that up. And now there's those three options that I talked about. And so I'm going to start with the bottom one here, family device. That's probably the most commonly used right now. So if I click on that, I've got two options, either at home with Funster, which is built for our youngest learners who it's a very simple workflow. It's a one-way workflow. It's filled with audio prompts in case the child is an emergent reader or a non-reader. The iPad will tell them, essentially give them the instructions orally on what they need to do as well. It also prompts only for an oral response rather than typing, and also has some additional built-in features for children who might have a little less dexterity, and has large buttons, and also takes the photo automatically for the student rather than the student having to hold the iPad still and take a nice clear photo. As soon as the child stops moving the iPad and holds it still, it will count down and automatically take the picture. So let's take a look at that. So the first thing you need to do is wake them up. And so you can click on wake time. And then he says, well, hey there. Then you can hit Let's Go. And he says, can you show me your pass card, please? And I hope that sound's coming through of him speaking. I'm not hearing it on my side, but it was this morning. So I'm not sure if I need to adjust my Zoom settings. Let's see here. No sound. Okay, well then I'll just have to read it out loud, but it's a very friendly voice. I think my Zoom share, for some reason, it's not sending the sound through, but it's a very friendly voice saying, can you show me your pass card, please? And so then at this point, they would, the student would scan their pass card. And then she says, can I see some of your cool work? And now at this point, the student would hit the camera button, and that will activate the camera. And then, like I said, as soon as the child is holding the iPad still, it accesses the gyroscope within the iPad. And as soon as it's still, it will count down and take the picture. And so we're going to take a picture of my good old mug again.
Hold still. Do you like the way this looks?
All right, so I think the sound might be, I'm hoping you heard that because I think the sound's coming through now. Perfect, thanks, Tina. All right, so now I've taken a picture of the app and, sorry, of the mug, and now the student can make a choice whether they want to retake the picture or say, yes, it looks good. Now, obviously, a mug isn't a super, well, who knows, maybe it could be a great artifact, but, you know, imagine this is a picture of some of the other examples I gave, like something circular that they found outside, or two branches, and they're comparing the lengths of the branches for some of those younger grades, or for older, maybe it's a snapshot of their visual arts project, that the stage 1 of their visual arts project that they're working on, or demonstrating form of some sort of movement in physical education. Lots of different options there. But I'm going to say yes.
Can I hear more about your work? Tap the button to start recording.
And so now it's prompting for that audio reflection. So again, in the Funster mode, it's all audio, there's no typing. I hit that and it'll start recording right away. And now the student, as soon as they're finished their recording, they can hit all done.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
And now it's done. He goes back to sleep. The student, this again is built for the little ones. The student doesn't have to log out or anything like that. It's ready for maybe the next child in my household to pick it up, and they can either go through Funster or they can hit the X at the top left, and they can switch to the at-home mode if maybe they're a bit of an older student who wants access to the additional features that are in the at-home compared to the at-home with Funster. And some of those are things like being able to flip the camera around to selfie mode. The student has to take the picture themselves. It doesn't count down. There's no audio prompts. They can leave a written reflection or an audio reflection. Both options are there. They can title their work. So let's take a look at that. So if I click at home, you still have to scan the pass card. And now you can see this is the slightly more mature view. So this time I'm actually going to take a video, just like I did last time. Now it's recording a lovely video of me moving the mug. Very exciting. And so I'll hit stop. And so now I've got my video there, and I can make a title. I'm going to creatively call this mug, just like I did on that last artifact that you saw. And then you see down below that you can either do an audio recording as well, or write down some thoughts. So actually do a written option. So again, I'm going to write the same creative sentence. This is my mug. Done. And so again, up to the teacher if they want to prescribe a little bit better than what I've got there for what should be included in audio reflection, maybe identifying next steps, identifying what they struggled with in that process, telling me about it if it's just if it's younger students, and so then I can hit done. And then it's ready to go for, again, the next child to either scan their QR code, switch modes if they want. Again, we're all working within the at-home option here. And so if I hit that X again and go back to those 3 options, class device works very similarly, except that, so in-class mode and in-class with Funster, that all works the exact same, except that when they select one of these options, students both first have to scan a class card. So you'll notice the instructions at the top say scan your class card to let your students add evidence, because the idea is that this is an iPad that's existing within a school, and we want to make sure that we're identifying which classroom we're in before allowing students to capture their evidence of learning or start using the iPad. And so you'll notice with the teacher view, when I click on print class pass cards, that first one here is the class pass card. And so right here, this one is the first one they'd have to scan, and then everything else is the exact same. All right. I saw a question in the chat, which is a great question. Does this app work on mobile devices, phone? And yes, absolutely. So it's Android and iOS, tablet and mobile. So if you have phones, which were definitely very popular in the classroom as well, or even old, I can't even remember what they were called. iPads, no, iPods, that's what I meant to say. Even they'll even work on older iPods and things like that. So absolutely, they can run on all sorts of different devices. All right. So I think that's essentially everything I wanted to talk about with the Portfolio app. I'm just refreshing my page here because I want to show you that I changed from those monster avatars to just the profile image. So if the student hasn't uploaded an image to their profile, it'll just be this sort of silhouette here, which is a little less exciting. But if you don't like the monsters for whatever reason, that's what you can change in settings, and that's what it'll look like. So where do you download the app? So from your app store, if it's iOS, if it's an Apple device, then it'll be the App Store, and if it's an Android device, it'll be the Play Store. And so you can find it there, and you can search for, if you just search for Brightspace Portfolio, it should come up, and a reminder that you're looking for the little leaf, and you're not looking for ePortfolio, right? ePortfolio is different. You want to make sure you're looking for Portfolio. All right. All right, any other questions on Portfolio before we move to talking about class progress? I know that was a lot of information with Portfolio. I'm gonna revert my settings back to those friendly avatars. Well, we're just waiting to see if any other questions come in. Actually, the last thing I'll show you is if I go to approve evidence, now we see those things that I just did. Right, looks the same as what I did this morning, but I promise you these are the new ones, 2:22 p.m. So these are the ones I just did with the demo with you guys. So you see the one with the video and the one with the image, and this one with the audio reflection, and this one versus the written reflection here. All right, we'll go back to class portfolios. And I don't see any other questions coming in, so we'll move to class progress. And so this is the last little segment before I leave you with a bunch of resources and places to continue to learn about Portfolio and other iLearnNYC platform tools if you would like. So what is class progress? So it's a tool that's great for getting a bird's eye view of your entire classroom. That's really the best way to describe it, I think, is it provides a nice little summary of how students are doing in your course. It's a really nice visual display, so you can very quickly identify which students are falling behind, which ones are ahead, kind of where everybody's at in the class. You can also very easily zoom in on a particular student, so click on a student and then see more detailed information around how they're progressing in your course. So let's take a look. So the class progress tool is found in the toolkit, And your bottom left option here, class progress, is what you want. So you want to click on that. And I'm going to close out some of these windows. And you can see when you do, you're brought to a list of all of the students in your class on this left-hand side here. And then you've got these 4 indicators or progress indicators that act as your summary. So each one of these displays different information. This one, content completed, this refers to the content tool in your class. So if you learned about, I think on Monday, how to add content to your course, if you have, for example, 16 pieces of content in your course, I can see for the student how many pieces of evidence they have, or sorry, evidence, I've got portfolio in my head now, how many pieces of content they've looked at in my course. And so now on this column here, I can really quickly identify Brandy and Paul haven't looked at any content in my course. And so I can, again, take action on that, maybe have a conversation with them, find out what's going on there. Really easily, or even Will here, who looks to be a little bit behind at only 33% of the course. So that's content completed. There's also assignment submissions, and so I can see how students are performing on assignments. There's login trend, and so I can see how often students are logging in and how many times per day. So on this day with the larger bar here, they logged in 4 times versus some of these others, which was just 1 time or sometimes not at all. Or maybe they've never logged in, which is definitely an issue that you want to address. Or this grade summary here, it, again, if you're using the grades tool, anytime you give a grade to a student, it'll show up as a little bar here, and you'll be able to quickly identify, again, struggling students or students who are even ahead, or also the trend. So you can see Elaine's not really on the greatest trend here if we see this, versus Paul maybe is on a better trend coming up. So really great for that. Now, if you happen to be following it in your sandbox, you might notice that you don't necessarily have the same 4 indicators here in this summary area. And that's because teachers actually have control over which 4 indicators they see. So you have a choice of a list of about 9 indicators, and you can choose which 4 are the most important to you to see on this summary page. It can only be 4, so you got to pick from the list and pick 4. And so I really like login trends. I find that super useful. Definitely content completed, assuming that you're putting content in your course. This might not be quite as relevant for kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, if they're not going to be actually navigating through content. It really depends on how you're using the course, but definitely more relevant as you get into some of those older grades where you have videos, PDFs, links, documents, and things like that that they're going to be expected to look at in content. Then this indicator is going to be important for you. Assignment submissions, again, only important if you're using the assignments tool. If you're not using it, then you're going to get a whole bunch of no scores received, and it's just going to be empty information for you. And so you might as well sub it out with an indicator that's more important to you. So for example, assignment submissions, there's not a ton of info here. I might choose to sub that one out with a tool that I use a little bit more. And so I can do that in the settings area up at the top here. And so here, now I can see those 4 indicators that I have, and I said I wanted to sub out the assignments one. So I'm going to click on the drop down there and hit replace. And now I've got these other ones to choose from. And so maybe I'm actually making really heavy use of the discussions tool, and that's going to be useful for me in my little summary chart, or the quiz tool I'm using a lot, or surveys. You know, it really depends on which tools you're using. And so I'm going to say I'm going to be using discussions lots. So I'm going to sub that out with discussion summary. And so I hit save and close. And now I can see for discussions, For each student, how many discussions they've read, how many threads they've started, and how many replies to other students they've made. And so again, I can really quickly see who's engaging a lot and who's maybe not engaging so much. And so I can switch these out. I'm going to put it back the way I found it though, and put it back to assignments. There we go. Now, as I mentioned, this is really just this is your bird's eye view, your summary page. For any student, I can go in and see more information about these summary indicators, as well as every other indicator that's available in the course. And so if I go into Elaine here, click on hers, I'm going to see a list of all of the indicators on this left-hand side here. And then on the right, I can scan through each one of those indicators and expand more information about them. So the grades, for example, now I can see which, the name of the grade item, what they got on the grade item, whether it's a 70%, a level 2, a 40%. Maybe I was using words to provide their feedback, so achieved or not achieved. Really depends on how you set up your grade item. If I opted to show the score distribution, I might see a graph here. These are all settings that you can change within the grades tool. Probably a little bit more relevant for slightly older grades than younger students. But below that, you've got content area, which I really like. This is where you can get really good insight into, on that summary page, we saw, the percentage completed. But now I can see even more detail about that. So I can actually see here that Elaine has visited this course 38 times, and she has spent a total of 2 minutes and 19 seconds in content. This is a demo site, and so 2 minutes and 19 seconds isn't a lot of time. Hopefully in the real world, they would be a little bit longer than that. But then what I can do is expand the topics visited, and then I can see for each individual topic, how many times they visited each topic, and how much total time they spent on that topic, and then the last time that they visited it as well. So some really good insight into how that student is interacting with your course, in this particular case with content, how much time they're spending in there doing their learning. So a really great starting place if you notice a student is falling behind and you take a look at their content statistics, maybe there's a bit of a correlation there. If you don't find that they're really, maybe you look at their login trends, they're not really logging in that often, or they're not spending a lot of time looking at their resources, then that might be an indicator, or definitely a starting place for a conversation with the student or the parent. I do always point out, though, that this is not a secret. So students have access to all of this information as well. So when they come to the class progress tool, they obviously don't fall on that initial summary page with those 4 indicators. They fall directly on this page here, and they would be able to navigate to content and see the same information. So I do always like to point that out. And so moving down a little bit further, right, more information around discussions, assignments, quizzes. I could get this same information by going to the quizzes tool, or going to the assignments tool, or going to the discussions tool, but this kind of just brings it all into one holistic place to look at it all together as one and get a more holistic view of how the student's doing in the class. All right. So that is everything I wanted to show you with class progress. I don't see any questions in the chat about that one. There usually isn't too many questions about that. It's pretty straightforward, which is great. So let's move on to a couple of resources. So I mentioned at the beginning that there are office hours being offered directly by the iZone team. So that's great. That means that you can basically pop in and ask any question you want during these hours up on the calendar here. So next week or today, there's office hours being offered immediately following this, or at 3 o'clock, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and then next week every morning from 8 to 8:45, and twice on Friday, and that continues all the way until the first week of September. So lots of opportunities for you to get your questions answered. And then there's also lots of places for some self-directed learning. So the first one I'll point out is the iLearnNYC 101 training course, which is a great course for you to get an introduction and overview of the platform, but also for you to get a student perspective of taking a course, because you are enrolled not as a teacher in this course, but as a student in this course. And so it's great for you to kind of see the student perspective of navigating through a course. So I definitely recommend you check that out. That is available if you go to the district level homepage. In the My Courses widget, you should see the iLearnNYC training course right there once it loads. And if you don't see it there, there it is. If you don't see it there, then take a look up in the waffle, and it should be there. And you can always pin it so that it does show up in your My Courses widget. So definitely recommend that. Secondly, I'd recommend checking out this Get Help Here area. And so there's 4 spaces I want to talk about here is these 4. So there's the iLearn support site, which is great for, again, more resources that are designed and built directly for NYC teachers, built by the iZone team. So there's a great getting started section. If you want to dive a little deeper, there's kind of key LMS tools. And then if you want to go into a little bit more advanced, there's some more advanced videos on how to use different tools within the platform. Recordings of previous PD offerings are all here and will continue to be added to. There's also a section for parents and guardians, although note that this primarily talks about, notice it's coming soon, it primarily talks about Brightspace for Parents, which is not yet available in iLearn. However, underneath that, there is a little PowerPoint that is great for, even if you don't have Brightspace for Parents, this kind of gives an introduction to parents about how to navigate within iLearn, what the key kind of areas are, and it helps them kind of understand a little bit. They don't need Brightspace for Parents for this. This is just to help them understand how to help their child navigate the platform. All right. And then there's also our community site, which you're welcome to sign up to be a part of. You can ask questions on there if you'd like. Other Brightspace users might respond to your question, or someone from D2L will. And you can also participate in discussion areas, get access to all sorts of different resources here. If you click on instructor, that will take you to topics generally related to what instructors are interested in. Then there's also our documentation site, and so this allows you to search by keyword for particular things that you're trying to do, or you can go browse under instructor, and then there's multiple subjects here for things that instructors often want to do. And then there's our YouTube channel if you like watching videos. This is a great YouTube channel to follow. It's Brightspace tutorials, and it has little 2 to 3 minute videos on how to do all sorts of things within the platform. And so if you notice, videos all follow with 4. So 4 instructors or 4 learners. So learners being students, instructors obviously being teachers. And so videos that apply to you would definitely be those 4 instructor videos, not administrators, which are generally site LMS administrators. So people who are responsible for the configuration of the iLearn platform. And I'm going to leave you with a bonus resource that is not listed on the Get Help Here area, and that's the Educator Webinars that D2L is putting on. And so if I click on that link, I'm going to actually put this link in the chat so that you can access it. You'll definitely want to save it. If I can find the chat pod, it's under one of my windows here somewhere. All right, well, I'll put it in there in a second because it's the chat pod is lost on me right now. It's, oh, there it is. It was hiding under my Q&A window. Here we go. All right, link coming at you there. That is to our Educator Webinars, which there's actually a really great webinar coming up at 4. So you can always visit the office hours if you want, and then join this webinar, which is very exciting. It's all about transitioning your online classroom to Brightspace. It's only 30 minutes long, and then it's followed by a 30-minute Ask the Expert session. So you can just spend the first 30 minutes listening to the webinar. It's a live webinar at 4 o'clock today, all about, particularly if you're used to using Google Classroom, this would be a good one to understand kind of the differences or how to transition from Google Classroom to the iLearn platform, or they'll be referring to it as Brightspace here because it is put on by D2L, not specifically by NYC. And then there's also other great webinars coming up. We've got one on Tuesday about our Microsoft Teams integration, building online learning groups, an additional Ask the Expert session, differentiating learning in Brightspace, lots of Ask the Experts. So in addition to the office hours that iLearn offers, there's these office hours as well. Really just a whole host of resources coming up. And then there's also pre-recorded or previously recorded webinars that we've basically been doing these since March, ever since COVID hit, and we've had a ton of teachers wanting to move their content online and looking for a really robust tool that can really facilitate remote and blended instruction. And so this is, anytime you see watch now or access the slides, those are previously recorded webinars that you can watch. And they're on a whole host of different topics that you can scan through. They're kind of sorted by category up at the top here. So definitely invite you to explore those as well. All right, look at that, 2:44, and that's everything I had for you today. So if I don't have any other questions coming into the chat, then I will leave you at that today. And feel free to stop into the office hours at 3 p.m. and maybe see you in the webinar that D2L is offering at 4. So thank you everyone for joining me today, and have a great day.